Just about to make some coffee, but before I did that, I wanted to make a real quick piece here because I am disappointed, okay? And not with you, not with myself, but just with media and stuff. As some of you may know, I actually did go to film school. It's a little known fact about me. In my time in film school, I wanted to write and direct stuff. And that was like kind of my goal, something I wanted to do. And a big part of that, I think, is watching old stuff, old films, and kind of having a greater appreciation and understanding for the work that's out there. So I spent a lot of my time kind of focusing in on that. In later years though, like in today's day and age, I don't really have the same kind of time to like sit down and dedicate myself to fully ingesting a fine art film. So instead what I've been doing is watching a lot of like TV, in the background, just like passively watching TV. And that's fine sometimes, but what I've also found out is that like TV kind of sucks. It does. And I think there's like the modern streaming realm that we're in right now is very interesting to me because the idea of TV initially was to be run on these networks so that way they could run ads in between and sell product, bring people in and week out to some kind of consistency, some kind of monotony that they can feel comforted by, and then, oh, I guess I'll buy this product, whatever that is. Since the advent and kind of takeover of streaming, it's now become like people are just trying to shove as much onto whatever platforms that they have in order to keep people justifying that just $10 a month subscription charge or what have you. Now obviously the prices are going up, ads are being run on things, and it kind of now defeats the entire purpose of streaming, or at least the appeal of streaming initially, which is like only $10 a month and we can just watch Netflix and not have to deal with ads. That's so much better than cable. But now it's more than that and you get less stuff, and yeah, that's cool, right? The reason entirely that I'm bringing this up is because there was a show that I kind of liked. It came out a few weeks ago. It was called Chaos. It had Jeff Goldblum in it as Zeus. It was like a modern interpretation of Greek mythology. Cool idea, like a genuinely kind of cool idea. And I thought they executed fairly well. It was beautifully shot. Like just some of the scenes, it was like, that's really well framed and like really well done. Funny bits to it where Jeff Goldblum is like, all-powerful God or whatever, and he's just acting like a child. The inherent idea of that is funny to me. Then they're down in like the underworld. Everything is like this really stark black and white, and you have these people that really fully believe in the afterlife, and they're trying to like commit to that. I don't know, I thought the way the characters interacted with one another was really well done. All of the different political relationships that people had with each other, I thought again was really well done. And it was just like, man, this is such a good show. It kind of ended on a cliffhanger. I'm like, yeah, like I can't wait for season 2. Famous last words. Can't wait for season 2. My buddy sends me a Reddit post the other day, and it was, Chaos is canceled. Cool. So I looked into it a little bit, and I saw a review that I thought was just an atrocious review. And I screenshotted it and sent it to him. And I get it. Like, reviewing things is very hard. I'm not trying to diminish this person's, like, work quality or effort or anything like that. This is just, in my mind, a really bad take, I think. And I could be wrong. Like, somebody could watch the show and agree with this person's take completely. And that's fine. Like, they're entitled to do so. I disagree with it, and I'm entitled to do that as well. Like, we all have our own opinions, and I think reviewing something is inherently a difficult thing because you have to have a very firm grasp of your own feelings and your own opinions on the thing, and then also try to find a way to navigate the larger narrative of the public opinion and try to kind of, assess that and make an opinion that ties into those as well. So it's a very challenging thing. And this person, TV critic Aramid Tanubu, don't know if that's the correct pronunciation or anything like that. I'm sure they're a fine reporter, but I, again, think that this is really silly. Ultimately, chaos fails to delight because the narrative buckles under the weight of its own ambition. Several storylines stand alone before ramming into each other near the season's anticlimactic end. The gods rarely even use their powers in any gasp-worthy or thrilling ways. More than anything, viewers are left to wonder why their petty squabbles should be of any concern to us, especially when there's already so much to confront on Earth. So first and foremost, I want to say that there were like different narrative storylines. We followed like a few different characters, all of whom I felt like did a very good job of expanding and elaborating upon this, kind of foreign world of Greek gods being a real thing, but kind of in a modern setting. I think they did a good job at like filling out the world and making it feel like, oh, okay, I can understand how these groups of people interact with these groups, and it all kind of ties in and out with one another. It made sense, I thought, and I think ultimately it kind of led to a very full-bodied piece of media. Pairing that with the gods not using their powers very much, I loved that. There was a bit where Zeus like electrocutes Hades in a pool, but you don't see him like blasting him like the fucking Darth Sidious electro-bolting a guy. You just see like a close-up of his arms and like the veins tensing up and stuff. And there's another bit where Zeus has like, he's trying to find this watch, and he has all of his like servants lined up, and he was like playing, he's like skeet shooting with them. He's like, pull, and they like jump off and he shoots them with a shotgun. And that's very dark, okay? But he's not zapping them with lightning. It's a shotgun, and it feels funny and comedic because he's just like flippantly doing this action. He's not exercising his powers, whatever that is. I personally am very tired of seeing like the Star Warsification, the Marvelification of content, where everything has to be this big, bombastic, CGI'd slog mess of lasers and fire and explosion. Like, I just, that to me is like, if you go to a wedding or like a anniversary and there's like the cake and it has like all the crazy things, but it's all like fondant and like that really shitty tasting frosting. It's probably just a very hefty carcinogen. That to me is what that is. It's just all of this fluff and nothing of actual substance, nothing of interest, nothing of intrigue. Like, it does nothing for me. I didn't see that as a downgrade of the show. Like, I want to see more lasers. Like, I personally could give a fuck less about that myself. I think it's more interesting the less you show. I just like a little bit more intrigue. I like not, being like waterboarded with everything that's happening. Like, trust me, the viewer, a little bit to be able to have an idea of what's happening without having to show me every little detail and going out of your way to like make the CG look so bad. Anyway, that's kind of a larger point there. I think a creator who does CGI stuff very well is David Fincher. He creates these really realistic worlds and then uses CGI to like fill it in to fit what his idea of that is. A great example is Zodiac, where he kind of shoots San Francisco and then fills in bits and pieces of it to make it historically accurate to San Francisco of like the 60s or 70s or whenever that is set. I don't remember, it's been a while since I've seen it, but before and after, the visual effects is amazing. It's night and day. And that's cool because it like fills in the world, makes it feel more real, and it isn't like, whoa, but now there's lasers and cool things and the petty squabbles of the gods. I thought that was like one of the strongest points of the show. We have these gods that are like all powerful, again, acting like children and like upset that someone's human sacrifice wasn't good, or like upset that the statue wasn't what it should be, and taking on the humans, and the humans are dealing with these like unrelenting like actual political struggles with other people in other countries and all this stuff. And then meanwhile you got these gods that are just like meh, like just acting like children. And it's funny to me, like having that disparity between actual concerns and then like the moaning of the gods or whatever, just like the pissing and moaning of the gods were just like, nah, this isn't what I want. I thought it was really compelling. So completely disagree with that critique. Doesn't mean that I'm correct either, but I thought it was a great show, and it's canceled now. And that leads to the rest of this whole point of the video. There are so many instances of this. Another I can think of off the top of my head is Outer Range, a show that was on Amazon Prime. Stars Josh Brolin. It's kind of this dark, brooding, Western sci-fi show. It's really interesting. I remember watching the first season years ago when it came out. I was like, wow, this is really awesome. And it ends on a cliffhanger. I was like, oh, can't wait for it to come back. And it came back, like, I think earlier this year. And I completely forgot about it. And I was like, oh, well, I'll go back, go rewatch the first season so I have an idea of everything, and then go into the second season. Amazon Prime now has ads on it, so like it takes a long time to get through shows. And I'm getting like these Little Caesars ads in Spanish and like this one marker ad, and it's really annoying. But anyway, beside the point. I Googled it because I was like, when did the first season come out? And as I Googled it, I saw a little article. They're canceling it after season 2, and it ends on a cliffhanger. So it's like, okay, cool, now I'm not gonna watch it. Because like, why would I watch all of season 1, catch up on it, watch all of season 2, and then just be let down and disappointed at the end? I understand like with these streaming services, they're trying to appeal to as wide an audience as possible, again, to bring as many people in. But it just feels like they are firing so many shots out there, and they're not letting any of them hit any potential targets before they're like, okay, we can't keep doing this anymore. We can't keep funding this anymore. And they just pull back, they pull back, they pull back. And they keep making these really confusing and confounding decisions, spending like millions and millions of dollars upon things that aren't going to be successful, that nobody wants. I saw there was a Time Bandits reboot. What are we doing here? Like, I love Time Bandits, don't get me wrong. But, why? Why are we trying to reboot that? Just because it's a known IP and we're just trying to like scavenge whatever modicum of value exists within that fan base? That's kind of a frustration that I've had. There's been a few shows that I've like watched recently that I've like kind of enjoyed, like I've mentioned. Chaos being one of them. As excited as I am about like these new exciting projects, ultimately they don't return as an investment as much as the producers and the executives would like. So instead what we get is fewer of these like interesting independent ideas and more of them rolling out older properties that you might have some recognition of and then trying to milk that for every penny that it's worth. Ultimately leading to just this really bland monotony of garbage and resuscitations and reboots and remakes and sequels and prequels of things that don't have enough legs for any of that. It's very frustrating as somebody who likes to create things to see that, because it just feels stale creatively. And we have something like The Rings of Power, which I made a members video on. If you want to become a member and watch that video, you can. My entire issue with that show, just Reader's Digest version, is it just doesn't really work in the larger Lord of the Rings universe. Instead of like making a good show with compelling characters, they're trying to recreate as many of the highlights of Lord of the Rings as possible to get people to watch and be like, oh, I remember that, I remember that, I remember that. And it just feels cheap, and it feels poorly done, poorly executed, and it is. The only way to make a show now seems to be hop on to a known property and spend millions and hundreds of millions of dollars on making it look as terrible as possible. Because those, in my mind, are the only shows that are getting like renewed, getting a second season, all this stuff. And I've just seen so many things that are like interesting or compelling to me, but then I read the headline, canceled, canceled, canceled. So it's like, all right, I'm not gonna watch any of this then, because what's the point? What's the point? Why I prefer movies, because movies, you are built into this 1 to 2 hour structure of gotta tell my story, beginning, middle, end, be done. Now, obviously movies aren't getting made either, unless they're sequels, remakes, or reboots, or whatever the hell. So it's a rough time. It's a rough time. Fortunately, there's a massive backlog of movies and TV shows that I would like to watch, so I'm going to just be doing that. I'm just very frustrated, and I don't really know where else to voice my opinion, because I talk to my buddy about it all the time, and I thought, hey, I'm gonna make a little video about it. This is not gonna perform very well because my channel has nothing to do with any of this. It has nothing to do with camera stuff, except for the fact that I usually watch TV while I'm repairing cameras, background noise and all that. It just sucks, and it makes everything feel much more small and a little bit more dismal when new creative fun things aren't being produced and it's just like the slop here and there. I will say that there are a lot of like independent projects that are coming out that I'm excited about, movies and stuff, but unfortunately those don't get the kind of push that other things get. Like Indiana Jones came out this year, I think it was, in Indiana with Harrison Ford. He's like 90 years old or some shit. They just wheeled him out. Like, what are we doing here? Why? And they spent like $300 million on it or some shit. Like, for what? Who thought that was going to be a good idea? Who wanted that is my like larger question. Who wants this? Also, I hate the 8-episode structure that shows have taken on now. TV shows used to be like 20 episodes long a season. I mean, I know that's a lot. Like, don't get me wrong. That's maybe too much. But like 8 episodes, what are we doing with this? And something like Rings of Power 2, this is going to become a little bit of a Rings of Power rant, but they have 8 episodes where like nothing happens. And they're like cramming every fraction of a second of that show with complete slop. 2 characters talk to each other, cut to another scene of 2 characters talk to each other, cut to another scene, 2 characters talk to each other. It's like filler. And I get it, you have 8 hours to fill up. Rings of Power should have been like a half-hour long skit, basically. They should have just uploaded that shit on YouTube for half an hour and be like, look, here's the whole thing, this is what happens. The Forging of the Great Rings and Lord of the Rings was like 5 minutes, maybe, at the beginning. It was like a little, like, Galadriel's just talking about, oh yeah, and then just fucking poured the rings, here we go. Then they were like showing them off, and that's it. Oh, and then they were deceived, there was the one ring. That's the show. They're trying to like make 16 hours now of show out of like that 2 minutes of movie time, and they're doing a terrible job. That 2 minutes of the intro, Fellowship of the Ring, is infinitely better than both seasons of Rings of Power. Explain that to me. Anyway, don't watch TV. It's just not worth it. There's shows out there that are probably good, but new shows that are coming out, they're probably going to get canceled. Whether you watch them or whether you don't, they're not going to hit whatever internal rating system any of the streaming services has, and they're going to get canceled, and you're going to have to sit through a bunch of annoying ads, end up in disappointment, because in the showrunner's last-ditch effort to hopefully egg the producers to okay a second season, which they're not going to do, unless, of course, it is the Star Wars origin story of the weird alien scene in the background of 1/2 a second shot of this other thing, or the Marvel show about some new character who's the most powerful, coolest thing of all time. So yeah, unless those are happening, you're SOL. So don't watch TV, watch a good movie, and yeah, that's it. Watch more of my videos. Do that. I'll never leave you on a cliffhanger, huh? Except for right now.